Evening, everybody. Welcome. We're about to get started. Hi there, Claire. Nice to see you. We're about to get started for this session on Be a Learning Designer Pro with Affinity Publisher. And we're going to be setting off today and giving you about 45 minutes to an hour's worth of some really good features and demos of Affinity Publisher and showing you some use cases for schools as well. So really looking forward to showing you everything that Affinity has to offer in this session today. Hey there, Katie. How you doing? Nice to see you. Hi there, Ben. And good evening. And I'm in the UK, so it's very late in the evening, and I'm joined as well by Dave Ollinger, who's in Seattle. Together, we're bringing you this on behalf of Learn Designer Pro. My name is Phil Badham. I'm a former English teacher and a educational technologist by trade, and also a Visible Learning Plus consultant. And Dave, you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Dave Olinger. I'm in Seattle, Washington. I'm the director of digital strategy at O'Day High School. I've been a teacher, a director of social emotional learning programs, but currently sit in the technology space, running a Microsoft Showcase school. I'm very invested in the Microsoft environment and the Canva environment, so I'm really excited to be here to learn from Phil. And I've known Phil since 2012, so we've been doing stuff together for quite a long time.
Okay, we are, as I said, we are going to be talking today about Affinity Publisher. And just to bring up to speed, if you didn't already know, obviously Affinity is now available for free. It's something that we've been really excited about. And we're very, the fact that there are three absolutely top drawer applications there in Affinity Photo as your standard digital image editor, industry standard. Also Affinity Publisher, which we'll be focusing on today. And then if your graphic design option there is Affinity Designer. But we're going to be focusing today on Affinity Publisher just because that tends to be the one which we find has had the biggest traction in some of the schools that we work with and in Dave's school as well. And we're really excited about the way that this brings design right to the hands and fingertips of the students themselves to see what they can create and do it in such a professional way as well. Dave, if you just tell us a little bit about, first of all, how we get Affinity. It's obviously now free through the Canva account. If you want to just add a few bits and pieces in there.
Yeah, so I've been helping students install software for years, and Affinity's done just a marvelous job or Canva's done a marvelous job in helping authenticate their software through the Canva accounts. So if you have a Canva account in your ecosystem, in your student's ecosystem, that means that they can go to Affinity. The URL is there. They can go to that website, download Affinity, and when they install it, there'll be a little link that says, log in with Canva. And if the students log in or the teachers log in with their Canva account, it's going to give them access to this pro level software pretty quickly. We had this situation at our day this year where we had teachers that have been using Adobe InDesign. And Microsoft just launched these new ARM-based devices, the Copilot PCs. And the InDesign wouldn't install or run on those. And so what was really great was that we could just pivot that day. We installed and launched, and the teacher who had been teaching with Publisher for years, with InDesign for years, picked up Publisher quite quickly in the fly. And so we've kind of pivoted to the Affinity suite simply because a lot of those native ARM apps are built. Affinity builds them native ARM, which has been great for us. So real simple process, download it and just click, authenticate with Canva and your students will be in.
Off we go. Fantastic. Yeah. So we are going to be focusing today on some use cases, and these are some of the use cases for Publisher, which I've been working with schools with and thinking about the ways in which they can actually do really high quality professional standard work with. So things like, creating obviously publications, doing research, project work learning about design literacy along the way. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about, when you move forward from Canva into something like Affinity, is that you're essentially going into the more nuanced professional end of the design workflows that you've been working with. So Canva gives you that sort of launch pad. It gets you into that design ecosystem. And then, of course, when you want to start picking up those professional workflows, those heuristics that belong to graphic design and to page layout tools, then you can start to practice. Students can begin to practice those within the publisher application. So whether it's informative publications, whether you've got students doing their own fanzines, their own print publications, producing their own school prospectuses, that's always been a really popular project that I've run. Personal interest stuff, but also the day-to-day nitty-gritty of what happens in schools, such as producing newsletters. So your in-house teams, your business managers, your marketing teams in schools, they can all pivot to using Affinity Publisher to create lots of things, such as the sports day program, or the drama teacher can produce their drama programs, etc., etc. So that sort of internal publication space is really ripe for the taking with Publisher. And then, of course, you've got at the other end where students are leaving school. You've got a great application there where students can start to put in their digital assets into portfolios, CVs, resume spaces, and start to begin to put those together in, as I said, a very good looking, very professional looking format. So it really it's about giving students the edge when it comes to their design and their output. So what we're going to be doing in this session is, first of all, finding out a little bit about Publisher. So I'll be showing you the Publisher in all its glory in a moment. And I'll be showing you some of the really cool features that I like. So not just putting text and images on the page, but maybe some features that you're not necessarily aware of. We'll be touching upon some of the classic ones, such as the master page features, and we'll also be looking at how you switch between personas as well as you move through the different outcomes that you're trying to produce as you're working with images and text. So we're going to be looking at all of these different features, and my job is to essentially take you through three different sections. So we're going to be working on three different projects, and the first one is just to show you the basics of how you might set up a page layout with Publisher, and we're going to be doing an in-house student guide. Now, if you're a US teacher, one of the great things about using Affinity Publisher is that it would really support your learners if they're doing career technical education. So CTE teachers would find a natural home for something like Affinity Publisher, where you are learning to use industry standard tools within authentic scenarios. Then I'm going to be pivoting to something a bit more creative. I'm going to be looking at the more creative end of Publisher. I'm going to be showing you how to do things like clipping masks on text, so we can create some really wonderful forms of typography. And we're going to be also looking at how we can really master some more advanced layouts in that section too, and work with styles. And then the last one, we're going to be focusing on how we can use master pages in Publisher, as well as how we can make interactive cross-referencing and indexing between pages on that last bit. So we've got a fair bit to go through, but I'm going to be starting off just to show you a little bit, if you're not familiar with Affinity, the interface and what it looks like. So if you're familiar with publishing tools from other providers, then when you look at Publisher for the first time, then you'll be pleasantly surprised to see that it follows a very sort of similar way of doing things, and it's very intuitive and very easy to get started with. It looks daunting just because it's so fully featured, but as we actually look at the interface, if I look on the left hand side here, you can see that I have my main tools that allow me to start positioning my assets and start to laying out the frames in my page layout. And then next to that, along here, I've got the ability to switch and move between the pages in my individual document. So if I want to click to page 3, for instance, or want to click to page 2, I've got a very quick navigation space that I can bounce between the pages that I'm working on in my document. You've also got some very cool things packed into this panel here. You've also got this stock button, which allows me to pull in royalty-free and attribution-free images and videos from Pexels. So if, for instance, I was to use, as I am going to be doing later, a school building, I can just tap that in there and get instant assets straight out of the bag with that panel. and I can just pull those on and add those directly into my projects. So it's, rather than going outside of Publisher into Pexels and downloading those into my download folder onto my PC and then having to place them, I've got that one-stop shop to get all the images that I need. And this is fantastic for students because it just, there's no barrier to entry here. If they need to use images quickly and they need professional grade images, they can use them without having to worry about copyright. They can use them without having to worry about all those traditional things that we get from using stock photos. So that is a massive thing to have Pexels built right in to the back end of your application. And then you can see we've got other things because we're printing. You can see there that the Publisher will do a great job of going through your document and trying to pick out any spelling errors that it thinks it's found. Because this is about Japan, it's probably picking up some of the Japanese language here, and it's not recognize it because I haven't attuned it to that yet. But you can see here it's doing a great job of trying to work out which elements in the pre-flight before I send this to become a PDF, for instance, that I might want to check over, such as an overflowing text frame. And then, if I want to work on larger documents too, I've got the ability to work on things like books and chapters and much more sort of larger, longer form documents that I couldn't work with in the same way with something like Canva, for instance. Then this is my main section here, which includes what we call the pasteboard. So this is the ability for me to put my assets outside the main page. So that means I can organize what I want and then paste them into the page layout. A little bit like they used to before the digital era, where page layout designers would have a big board and they would bring everything they needed onto it and then pull them onto the main page. Then on the right hand side, we've got our panels. So this is where we can adjust properties. This is where we can do the fiddly bits in terms of manipulating text, manipulating stars and that sort of thing. And then along the top, we've got our personas, which we'll be touching on in a moment, as well as other options and other tools such as layering and other things such as the preview mode as well, which allows me to see my document with the guides and frames or without the guides and frames. So a nice, quick, easy toggle from preview into the design element. So that's just a quick guide to the interface. What we're now going to do is work on creating this. So this is just a very simple flyer for a school that might be trying to advertise its career and technical education offering to its students. So I'm going to build this with you and take you through some of the basics of laying out a single page. That's what we're going to be doing. And I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to start from scratch with File New. And this will bring up my new document dialog box. And from here, I'm then got the ability to choose the output that I'm going to have for this document. So I've got print options here. I've got A3, A4 if you are using European page sizes, but I've also got, conveniently, if I'm using a US page size, I've got my letter format there as well. We've got lots of other press ready sizes as well, including some of the smaller European sizes such as the B size, as well as accounting stuff like ledgers. And then I've also got web, the ability to design for web as well. So I can actually do it within pixels as opposed to other units of measurement. And you can even design, you see, prototypes for things like the iPad and different sizes of digital media too. So there's a whole ton of different page types there that you can use. You can drop those down by category in this little drop down box as well. Now we're going to be working on just a simple letter page for the moment. So I'm going to select letter, keep it US friendly. And down the bottom here, you can see that shows me that it's currently at portrait orientation. It's got dots per inch of 300, standard for printing. And then here I can set the number of pages. I only want one. So I'm just going to put one page there. And I'm going to pull my margins down to about 0.5. And this allows me just to think about the white space that's going around the outside of my document. Now, because I want 0.5 there and I want to fix that across all of my margins, I'm just going to make sure that that's locked so that when I hit return, it matches up my margins across all of the left, right, top and bottom space. Bleed, well, that's if you're going to send this for a professional printer and you want to make sure that any color that goes to the edge of the pages will not give you a white border. So I'm just going to give that a 3mm bleed across the outside, and that will give you a nice red line that I know that to make sure that my color images go outside into that little bleed space. Okay, we're ready to go. So let's click on create, and we are now white page ready. And what we can start doing now is begin to lay out the page that we want. Now, one of the great things about using Publisher is the ability to use guides. And to get a guide, all I need to do is to put my cursor into the side of the ruler and just drag on from the left click and drag any guides that I want to use. And I can just pull them on there, and I can pull them off if I want to get rid of them. But that allows me to start sort of breaking up the page into the grids that I want to have. So let's just start off with pulling these down. I sort of roughly know where I want them to be. I'm just dragging them in from the guide to the page. Okay, just to set up those there. And I'll also put one down at the bottom for my footer, around about the sort of 10 mark. And then I'll do some vertical ones as well, around about 5. And also around 5.2. It just gives me a little gutter. So we call that space in between where our text columns are going to be a gutter. So that just keeps a little bit of a space between my two blocks of text. Now I also need to know where my pictures are going to go. So I'm going to start using my frame tool, which is on the left-hand side, to draw out where I want my images to go. Now it's really important to draw frames. We'll see why in a little while, but that's where my top frame is going to be with my first picture. And then I'm also going to now select a circular frame, because this is where the school logo is going to go at the bottom of my page. And if I hit the shift button, that will keep my aspect ratio nice and clear. And then I'm just going to draw some rectangles. These are different from frames. These are just rectangular shapes that I'm going to be needing for my picture. And I can just quickly select a color for them. Okay, and we're also going to have another one of those down at the bottom here as well in a slightly different color, just so I've got my everything spaced out neatly accordingly here. So there we go. Right, so everything is now ready, and all I can start doing now is pulling in my graphics. So because I've made a frame here, what I can do is click on that frame, and then I can go to File, and I can go to Place, and I can find my graphics that I've already got ready, and I can just open that, and it will drop it into the graphics space. I'm just going to pick up that black one there for a moment and just make sure that it's got the opacity on. There we go. So that's my image. Now, because I dropped it into a frame, this is really important. So because I dropped it into a frame, I've actually got the ability to work with it by moving it around the frame. So the frame only shows you what's inside, and I can actually move the image around within that frame to make sure that I get what I need inside of it. So it's really quite powerful in terms of how the image is set up without having to crop it. And I can also expand it using this slider here to get the ratio that I want. So that's right, that's got sort of enough of the school in there, and I'm happy with that, and that's ready to go as well. So having placed an image, what I now want to do is think about placing some text. Now I've conveniently got a text in a Word document to the side here. So I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Place, and then I'm going to grab my Word document here called CTE text, and it's going to load up my cursor with that text. And all I'm going to do is draw out the box, and the text will load itself into that box pretty neatly. So I'm just going to bring that down to here, which is where I want it to end. And we can see that that little red mark there indicates that the text is overset. There's more text in this box than is actually allowed. So I'm going to click on this button here, loads up the cursor again, and allows me to build the rest of it down into this section here. Okay, so now you'll see that that is now actually connected. These two boxes are connected. So even if I start putting spaces into the first box, you can see that it adjusts and changes what's in the second. So these are related, and it wouldn't matter whether one was on page 1 and the other box was on page 324. They would still be related to each other, and the text would upgrade in each accordingly. So having done that, let's just do some more work on this particular one. And let's just add in now a graphic. So I'm just going to put in a little box to contain my section here on what you'll learn. And so just a rectangle there, and I'm just going to drop that in the layers panel, making sure that it's underneath my text. There we go. So keep that sort of nice and separate. And then what I'm also going to do is start to add some images into my flyer as well. Now, this is where I can start to use what we call the personas quite effectively. I'm just going to pull in now and place on the pasteboard one of the images that I've got. Oops, sorry, just come out of the text mode. It's going to place, and I'm just going to pick up this picture of a plate. So this is to advertise the fact that within CTE, I can do some dining courses. I can become culinary expert, and I'm just going to draw out the image here at the side. So this is now on my pasteboard. So I've got my image here, but what I want it to do is a little bit like my original, is I want to take out that black outline and then text wrap around the edge here, something that you can't do in Canva. So what I'm going to do is just bring that in here, and rather than take this out into Canva, do a background removal and then bring it all the way back in again, is I'm going to come up to the top left and I'm going to click on this photo persona, and it will switch me into Affinity's photo tools. So having done that, okay, I've now got the ability to make a selection. There we go. Oops. Now, if I've made a mistake, just Control D will stop that. And then I've got a decentish version of that there. So I'm just going to pop that back, and then I'm going to go back to my publisher there. And then this time I'm going to actually now select the text wrapping. Okay, so I'm going to go to text wrap and then show the text wrap settings. And then I'm going to start to put that tight. That one, there we go. And then you can see that if I then just pull those away from the right of that image, it's just pulling that away there, and it's wrapping nicely around my plate. So, and I can move that around, just make sure I've got it exactly where I want it to be. So you can see how easy it is just to get that text wrapping beautifully around that non-linear object there that I've created with the selection. So that just gives you a sort of sense about the sort of cool things that we can start to do as we put together a flyer. And then down here, remember, I've got my picture frame that I've got ready to contain my logo for the school. So same sort of thing again, just going to select that picture frame. Because it's a circle, I'm going to drop my circular logo into that. And there we go. Just Shift key to keep the aspect ratio, and just pull that, oops, pull that frame into position on the bottom. And then I would just add in all the other little bits and pieces, such as my footer text and the title for that page. So just a quick demo to show you how we might start to build the basic layout guides and frames for something like a quick flyer like that. So that's a really good, obviously a really good beginning point to start to think about using Publisher. As I said, we've sort of seen already how easy it is to bring on things like guides, how easy it is to use different types of frames, and also how easy it is to manage images, whether it's using a persona or whether it's placing them directly from our files and assets. And then, of course, we've got the ability to use things like the text wrap and to move and switch our text from different parts of the document around. So that's all well and good. But one of the questions that's often asked is, okay, so why would I use Publisher when I could use something like Canva? If I'm doing something like a flyer, I may have templates available to me within Canva. But the great thing about, as you've just seen here with Publisher, is that it's giving me a much greater sense of creative control and freedom. And the idea, I was using my snapping guides there as well, the ability to snap to those guidelines, to keep things under control and to start putting into practice my design aesthetics and skills rather than relying on those of other people and the templates that are being pre-created. So I learn about design through learning with Publisher. So through my design in Publisher, I begin to learn about the rudiments and the principles of good design. As I said, this is why Affinity is so particularly essential for high school CTE teachers, because you are dealing with a tool which is industry standard and professional grade. So what I'm going to do now is switch over and have a little look at how we might do some other cool creative things with Publisher. And I'm now going to go to my artist booklet. So I'm going to switch over now to my Whistler project. So I want you to imagine we've got a student here who's been doing a bit of a project and a study on the artist James McNeill Whistler, and they've begun to start to put together their text into the space here, and they've got a few images lined up as well, including the classic Whistler's mother at the end there. So they've got most things in, but there might be a few extras that they want to add to this document. And one of the first things I might want to do is have a more creative way of getting Whistler in there. So in my completed project, I have Whistler there coming in on the side. So what I'm going to do first of all is I've got Whistler here already, and if I look up to the top right, I've got the ability to rotate objects through different rotations. So I can rotate that anti-clockwise, and that will give me the ability to then put the Whistler down there. And I can edit the text directly by changing up at the top in my toolbar. I'm going to put in 120 points, so to make that nice and big so that it will fit onto the side of the page. So there we go. So that's all nice and ready. Now that's lined up at the side, but it's not as cool as my completed one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the picture of Whistler that I've got here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm just going to duplicate that. So I'm going to do a quick copy, and then I'm going to do a quick paste. So now I've got two copies of Whistler, which is great. And then what I might want to do is go to my layer and transform this and just flip it through the horizontal. And that means that the colors will match from the left-hand side to those on the right-hand side. And then just under here, I've got the Whistler in my layers panel on the right-hand side. I'm just going to bring that picture frame up so it's directly underneath my Whistler text. And then if I just right click on there, okay, and I look down, you can see that there is this option called mask to below. And what that will do is mask what's underneath the text, and then it will bring that into the big, thick, bold text that I've got there. So when I click that, you can see that the image is now inside the thick, bold Whistler slab font that I've selected instead. So that gives me a really lovely aesthetic to that opening picture there. And the last thing I need to do is just to click on James McNeill Whistler, who is here. Make sure I've got that layer selected, and just turn him anti-clockwise 90 degrees so that that is ready. So my front page is now done. Now, having done the front page, if I look down here, I might want to start making some adjustments. And one of the things that I might want to do is start to create my own styles and subheadings that fit with the mood, with the aesthetic of that front page. So one of the great things, of course, with working with a page layout tool such as Publisher is the ability to have full control over all of the different elements of your design. So that's things like the subheadings, such as the body text, and even objects as well. I can add special effects, etc., etc. But I've got the ability to sort of manage the styling in such a way to keep it consistent across the entire workflow. So let's go, for instance, up here and select a subheading that I want to create. So I'm going to go to the text styles. So this is on my panels over here. And if you can't see it in your panels, you can always go to Window and pick it up and tick it here, and then it will appear in your panels on the right-hand side. So that's really, really great to have that available. And within my text styles, I'm going to create a brand new character style. So this is a character style because it's a subheading rather than a paragraph style, which will govern, longer pieces of text that are separated into paragraphs. So I'm going to create a character style specifically for my subheading. And I'll give it a name. So I'm in the character style panel now, and I'm going to call this JMW, James McNeill Whistler subheading. And I'm going to choose a different font family for this. I'm going to choose one that I quite like called Dubai, nice sans serif font. And I'm going to make it bold and give it a font size of about, let's say 14. And if we want to have a look at behind just to see what's actually happening, you can see there how it's updating the subheading as I'm creating it. Now, what I also might want to do is switch it to capitals. So within the typography subdomain there, switch it to all caps, and that will then update that subheading. And what I also may want to do is to change something like the color. So let's go to text fill, and I'm going to take my color picker and take it up to the colors in my front page so I can keep it nice and consistent. I'm going to select that brown and then click on that brown, and it will update my JMW new subheading. So you can see there that as I'm adding these new properties onto my style, it's updating that and showing me what that looks like at the bottom. So it's keeping a record of all the different ways in which my style is updating. So I'm just going to click on OK, and that will now have created in my text styles a new style, a new character style called JMW subheading. And if I want to then apply that to the other subheadings, I can just select them, click on JMW subheading, and then that will obviously apply the style to those. And then if someone comes along later and says, I don't like that color, I'd much rather have the russet in this image on the right hand side, then that's easy enough. I can just double click inside it again, and I can change it to the color that they prefer. So let's just take a slightly darker brown, for instance, and make that adjustment. And then that will upgrade all of the individual instances where that star has been applied in the document. Now, one thing I may also want to do is to fill out the rest of this page too. And I've got 3 more images of Whistler's work that I might want to add in at the bottom. So and I've got some, I don't have to do this one at a time. I've got some quite cool grid tools that I can use when I start to place my frames. So again, because we want to do the frames first, we have more control over our images when we do, I'm going to select the rectangle frame tool and just start to draw out a rectangle here, but I'm not going to take my finger off my left button, because if I hit my cursor key to the right, I can create multiple instances of that individual grid. And then if I keep my finger on that right button, that will give me an equal spacing of grids as well. And then, now that's only 3 there. If I wanted an extra row, then I could do that as well. So just think, if you're doing a school yearbook, how easy it is to set up the grids for all the different faces that are going to go into those. Now I've got my 3 images there, and that's great. They line up, they snap beautifully to those edges. And what I now need to do is go to File. Well, first of all, let's select my frames, and then I'm going to go to File, Place, and I'm going to find my images that are left to go in. So I'm just shift clicking those. Okay, and I'm going to go dab, 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 and then all my images are placed neatly into those individual grids. And then if I need to do individual adjustments for each to make sure that they fill the boxes properly, and you can see it's already done a pretty good job. I can make those adjustments, move those around, and make sure they're absolutely as I want them to be. And then, of course, I could do the same with the text frame. I could add so that we could see which images are which underneath as well. So you can see there that if I need to be a little bit more creative and working with multiple page layouts, then Publisher's got everything that I need there too. And the last thing I might want to do, for instance, is just place something like, let me see. Let's put in a quote here into this little band. And I should find there's a text file here, so it's not just Word documents. And there we go. And there is my text that I've just brought in underneath, a little quote there. And I could also use some of my, like this one here, which is a nice one, and then update that directly from a style that's already a preset. There we go. And then I can just right click and update line to the left now that I've given it white as opposed to black. So I've actually now got the ability to add in a little text box there with a quote from Whistler into that section. There we go. So just some, as I said, some extra little bits and pieces that we can add in along the way. All right, so let's just come back to the original presentation there. And our final one that I'm going to have a look at before we finish out this quick webinar is just to see how we can apply things like master pages and some interactive elements using Publisher. So let's dive back in. And this time I'm going to bring up my spread. So I want you to imagine that students have been producing their own local history guides, and they've been putting together magazine spreads containing different aspects of their local city. And individual students have chosen individual attractions within their home city. So it might be that you've got Union Station as one of them, and it could be that you've got another student who has done the art museum. And if I just switch off the preview mode there, I can see all of my individual boxes that we've got working. You can see there's lots of different elements here. We've got text frames. We've got some nice text flowed frames at the bottom here. But what I'm going to do is, perhaps because this belongs to a whole group of different spreads, I might want to have some elements, master page elements that I can apply to this. So if I go to my pages panel and have a look up at the top in my master page section, I've got the ability to double click and enter into a master page spread. And this means that I can set up page elements that I can then add to individual parts of my document. So I might want to add, for instance, a side block that indicates that these pages relate to Colorado. And maybe later on in the document, we've got other states that are represented, and they might have a different color block, which means I can set up the pages that belong to Colorado with a block at the side that tab that as belonging to that particular state. So that's just a question of drawing on the page elements here on the side. Okay, and then I'm just going to draw in Colorado. Use my little tools here just to pop that on. And that now becomes a tab at the side for the pages that are to do with Colorado. And there might be other states in my documents that I might be able to flick through when it's printed, and they would go above and below it. So what I can then do is I can basically pull these master pages down onto my document, and then just go back to the layers and make sure there's the master page. If I bring that right up to the top, you can see that that is now applied that onto my spread. And I can do that again with pages 4 and 5 as well. So if we double click down here, just pull that up to the top, you can see that my master page element has now been applied to and it could be things like text page numbering. It could be putting a copyright onto the bottom of the pages. But this is using master pages allows me to put commonalities of design onto each of my pages, each of my spreads as I work through, which is a fantastic feature to have. And not only that, but of course, if I did want to create a new set of master pages, I can duplicate. And now I have master page B. And if the next state is a different one, maybe it is Texas, then just going to put that one in there and then delete my original Colorado one. Okay, and then if I had a page which belonged to the Alamo, for instance, then I can just drag my master B page down and create a separate master page for that particular section. So you don't just have one master page, you've got lots of master pages that you can create that will then you can then apply to the different parts of your document. Okay, what else can we do? So what if in my document here, I want to relate the Denver section here with on Union Station to the art museum. So it talks about it being a must-visit destination for anyone exploring Denver alongside the art museum. So I'm just going to select art museum here because I want that to link to the page below it. So let's just grab it and select it. And I'm going to go to text. And this time I'm going to come down to where I've got my cross references. And I'm going to insert a cross reference. Now I need to cross reference it to pages 4 and 5, which are about the art center. So this one will do because it's page 4, select educational center, and I'm going to put in my own text here. And I can put P, and then it will give me the page number that it refers to. It's going to generate a hyperlink. So if I click OK, that is now a hyperlink to the art museum on page 4. Now, if I export this as a PDF, when it finally comes in as a PDF into Acrobat, if I then go to my Denver Union Station page and click on the art museum, can you see how the cursor switches to a hand? So if I click that,
Mhm.
that's then going to take me to the page after it. So you can see here I'm creating textual hyperlinks, not outside the source of the document, but actually creating anchor points within it as well with the cross-referencing. So we've got some really cool tools that we can use especially if we're using some sort of collective exhibition of student work where they've all got their own individual things to do, and you bring them into a collective page document that you can then print out as a digital format. So that's a really powerful thing. You've not just got a print format here, but you've got an interactive PDF as well that works with these hyperlinks. So those are pretty wonderful things that you can do as well. So um, that is ultimately what I wanted to show you today. So we had 3 different little demos there. We had, first of all, the high school course flyer, where we looked at how to do things like the guides and the frames and how to manage images. And we also then moved on to looking at how we might play around with styles and how we might do some pretty creative typography, cool stuff with the title image of that first page. And we also looked at that nice little shortcut using my left hand button down and my arrow keys to create those equally spaced grids, particularly when I've got lots of multiple images to place at one point. And then the final one that we looked at was the idea of how we can use master pages and interactive elements on something like a local history project that students might be working on individually. Okay, so those were my 3 demos. And yeah, I just want to sort of talk about the fact that what we have here is a really amazing creative tool that gives me, a student, not just teachers, but students, they've got in their hands a tool that facilitates really high levels of creative control. And Dave, I know that some of your teachers have been using Publisher, and they found it pretty okay to sort of pivot to that and use it with their students.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, I'm doing a live stream. I want to unmute myself. So I believe so. Yeah, I have had a lot of students use this, and one of the things that I really like is that it can offer challenge in a classroom. You might have 15 students that want to use Canva, and 2 students that they're already design efficient. They know what they're doing, and just having this available, this tool available, makes it so easy for them to do it. And I know that a lot of schools don't provide pro level tools for students that are outside of a design classroom. And so this free software that anyone can download in the school, it really can give the teacher the ability to raise the level of challenge. Something that I know is very important for us to do for our students is making sure that we're always challenging them a little bit more. So for some students that have been invested in design, Canva has done a great job of democratizing that. And now we can offer students this extra challenge. And the tool itself, there's lots of training out there available. Students can really dive into this. And I find sometimes you just give the student a tool and they're going to come back with some amazing stuff and some great questions and some great learning.
Cool. Absolutely, yeah. And I think one of the great things about when you start using these applications with students is just they start to feel like they've got a really powerful tool in their hands, and once they start to know that they can do great things with it, that's really empowering for them, and it's hugely motivational. Canva is wonderful and we know that, but they reach a point of limitation with that, and then this is the natural jumping off point into that sort of professional world where they can really start to get to grips with not just what the tools do, but the aesthetics that go with them. You're only as good as the tools that you can use, but you can learn your trade through Publisher. You can learn design, you can learn layout, you can learn what works and what doesn't. You're not sort of it's not too tempting to sort of pull in a bit of a template or use a bit of AI. It's that sort of pure manual control that you've got there.
And Phil, one thing I'd love to
Yeah.
point out is that, people might think that a tool like Publisher is going to be too much friction. And what I find is there's certain elements that become frictionless in Publisher that have a lot of friction in Canva. You demonstrated some of those, whether it's putting text. No, I've got to edit the text. I want a page to be different. Canva doesn't link up like that. Maybe
Mm,
I want to really have a very bespoke, you know, different headings and titles. And now I don't have to go through and remember my RGB levels. I have everything kind of, I've prepped it, I'm ready to go. And this is where, tools like Affinity make things more frictionless.
yeah,
And so I find that, there's a lot of opportunity here.
absolutely, definitely. And it's not just that I've been obviously demoing the desktop version today, but you do have iPad versions as well. So, you can get those downloads for Designer, Photo, and Publisher onto your desktop, but you can also have them on your iPad as well. So you've got mobility built right into it as well. Um, and then the other thing that just before we sort of lead out here is that Dave and I are very much we are educators. We are pedagogy first. Learn Designer Pro was set up on that basis. So it's not just about pretty tools. It's not just about pretty designs. It is very much about making sure that we are, through the use of these tools and with specific use cases, how do we remove the barriers to learning for all students? And I think one of the key things is not just about putting it into the hands of students, such a really powerful tool, but actually, it's about recruiting their interest. If this is something that they want to push forward on and become pro level at, this is what they have available to them for free, which blows my mind. But also, of course, when you're working with text and images, you're into the world of multiple means of representation, of dual coding, of all the ways in which we learn and optimize our retention in the brain of the things that we need to know. So it's that creative representation of knowledge and information, which is, that Publisher helps us to arrange and pull that together so effectively. So just to mention that we are, it's not just about training on features. We're very much thinking about why do we do what we do and how is this important for the student as well. So just four takeaways before we finish out this particular webinar is that Publisher is, as I said, freely available for schools. It's a natural extension point for developing your creative digital skills and design knowledge in an authentic professional space. And really, students can use it as young as 11 or 12 years old if you give them enough of an introduction and a guide to how it's set up. But once they're using frames, once they're putting those wireframes on the page, it's so intuitive after that. Once you're just moving things around and placing and popping it in there, using your pick-up handles, it's not actually that much different, really. You've just got all that other stuff in the sidelines waiting to help you out. And to move on from Canva, it just seamlessly fits together really, really, really well. And of course, the great thing about the Affinity tools as well is that they are familiar environments. You're not coming across any sort of layout there that you may not have come across before. Because they're pro grade tools, they're using pro grade features and they're using pro level terminology, and the menus are all categorized and they are designed for optimal professional working. So therefore, they are, you want to work with text, you're working in the text space. You've got your text panels, you've got your stars. It is where you need it to be, and it is fully customizable, of course, as well. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more, or you want to know how to do these sorts of things that we've shown you today step by step with a coach and instructor guiding you through, we do have our own educational essentials courses. If you're interested in finding out about them, do please contact us at info@learningdesignerpro.com. We've got lots and lots and lots of different use cases at different age levels that we can put together for you to help you to learn how to use this package well. We also, if you want to access some sort of longer form coaching and training packages where we can support teachers throughout a year or a couple of years within your schools, do please ask us about our Ed Coach program as well, because that could be a blend of Canva or Affinity. It could be a blend of lots of different things. So you can have off the shelf, specifically focused training on individual aspects of Affinity, or you could have a blend depending on what your particular theme and focus is. So please do get in touch with us if you're interested. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you today and share these great tools. So thank you ever so much. And thank you, Dave, for joining me and supporting me today. And thank you for everyone that's joined us this evening or this afternoon, this morning, wherever you've come from around the world. So very much appreciate you being on this call today.